Everyone said I was hopelessly in love with Sophia, but eventually I ended up with his best friend. Sophia mocked me in public, calling me his lapdog, and boasted to his friends. With just one word, she'd kneel down and lick my shoes. Everyone said I was hopelessly in love with Sophia until later. Sophia's best friend announced our relationship on social media. That's when he went berserk, barking like a mad dog. On Christmas Eve, snow had been falling all night. Just as the dorm lights were about to be turned off, my phone rang. It was Sophia. "Hello? Liv, I drank too much. Can you come pick me up? I'm at number 8 Club, room 666. Before I could respond, he hung up. It was as if he was certain I would go, even with the snowstorm outside. I sighed, resigned, and climbed out of bed to put on my coat. "Liv, are you going to see Sophia again?" My roommate Zoe heard the commotion and pulled back her bed curtain to ask. I nodded. She hesitated for a moment, then simply reminded me to wear another layer. Everyone knew. Everyone knew I was hopelessly in love with Sophia. He clearly knew it too. When I arrived outside the private lounge and was about to push the door open, I overheard laughter inside. "Hey, Ethan, are you sure Olivia would really come? It's late, and there's snow outside." Even in a crowd, I could instantly recognize Sophia's voice. Of course, he sounded smug, probably from drinking too much. With just one word, she'd kneel down and lick my shoes. "Do you believe me?" Then came a burst of laughter. When I finally walked in, the room erupted with even louder laughter. The lounge was filled with smoke and dim lighting. Sophia sat in the center of the sofa, his arm casually draped around a woman. I wasn't surprised by this. Over the years, Sophia had never lacked female company. When I entered, everyone tactfully stopped talking about what they'd just been discussing. "Didn't you say you were drunk?" I walked over, ignoring the glaring woman beside him. Women like her never lasted more than 3 days around Sophia. Sophia released the woman and grabbed me by the waist, teasing. We were playing truth or dare. "You picked dare." I chose truth to call the most important person in my life. Sophia was always like this. A slap, then a sweet gesture, and I kept falling for it year after year. "Are you coming or not?" I pushed him away and extended my hand. As I expected, Sophia didn't come with me. He said, "I've got company tonight, you should head back." I understood and turned to leave. As I closed the door, I faintly heard Sophia mocking me. "See, I told you she's a lapdog." "You're the man." Ethan, truly impressive. I didn't get angry. Or perhaps I had long grown used to it. Too loving Sophia was the only thing I had stubbornly held onto for 10 years. He moved into the house next to mine when we were in middle school. From the moment I saw him, I knew I liked him. From middle school to high school and then to college, I never once confessed my feelings to him. But who didn't know? Who wasn't aware? Watching the women around him come and go, I once asked Sophia how long he planned to keep playing around. He always replied, "Guys are all like this. When I've had enough fun, I'll come find you." And so I waited year after year. But hearing his comments about me, firsthand filled me with anger and heartbreak. Letting go felt impossible. I kept thinking, maybe if I held on a little longer, he'd finally notice me. Maybe I really was pathetic, just like everyone said. By the time I left the club, the dorm lights had already been turned off, meaning I'd have to spend the night elsewhere. Thankfully, I had anticipated this. I checked into a nearby motel using my ID and stayed the night. The next morning, I learned Sophia had broken up with the woman from the night before. His reason was the same as always. "She's not as good as you, I don't like her." But I had been there all along. Why wouldn't he just look at me? Sophia brought me breakfast and even prepared a cup of brown sugar water. "Your time of the month is coming, right? Drink this, they say it helps with cramps." You think Sophia didn't like me? Then why did he remember my cycle, bring me breakfast every day, and never miss my birthday? "Thanks," I said. "Silly, no need to thank me." I pursed my lips, wanting so badly to ask him how long he planned to keep playing around. But in the end, I didn't. Sophia rested his head on the table, watching me eat the breakfast he'd brought. When I finished, he smiled contentedly. "What are you looking at?" I asked. Sophia raised an eyebrow and smirked, exuding his usual playboy charm. "Just admiring how beautiful my Liv looks." I froze, then said, "Class is starting." After he became single again, we went back to how things were before attending classes, eating meals, and studying together. Until one day, he suddenly said, "It's a friend's birthday. Want to come?" He knew that I could never say no to him. But when I arrived, I found out who his friend was. 3. Oh, Liv, you're here. Sophia mentioned she was bringing a friend along, and I was curious to know who it might be. Turned out it was another roommate of hers, Emma. She rarely stayed in the dorm. She'd moved out starting sophomore year. Emma, with effortless ease, clung to Sophia's arm, playfully teasing and complaining. Sophia, honestly, you should have told me you were bringing Liv earlier. I was wondering who your mysterious guest might be. Most of the people present were their friends, though there were a few familiar faces I recognized. Sensing the awkward atmosphere, some of them quickly stepped in to smooth things over. Liv, come over here honestly. Sophia, you're such a handful, dragging your girlfriend along to celebrate your birthday and making her do all the work. It clicked then. Emma and Sophia were now together. No wonder Zoe had been so hesitant to say anything that day. At that moment, I felt completely out of place. I glanced at Sophia, but he made no attempt to explain, instead turning away to whisper sweet nothings to Emma. My heart sank. Was this the reason he brought me here? Just to laugh at me? I barely touched my food, my appetite gone. I was just about to excuse myself when someone walked through the door. I froze on the spot. The newcomer was a young man dressed in winter attire, his expression as cold as the snow outside. But what truly stood out was the striking red mole at the corner of his eye, unique and captivating. Sophia, you're unbelievable. I just got back from abroad, and not only did you not pick me up, but you also made me find my own way here. From their conversation, I learned that the young man's name was Ethan. After spending 10 years abroad, he'd returned as a physics prodigy. In that moment, I suddenly didn't want to leave anymore. When I saw him, I forgot how to breathe. The noise around me faded into silence, and all I could hear was the pounding of my heartbeat. It wasn't until someone nudged me that I snapped out of my trance. Ethan took the empty seat beside me and, in a tone that bordered on impolite, greeted me. So, you're Olivia. It was obvious he didn't like me. I didn't mind his rudeness. Instead, I boldly took out my phone. Hey, handsome, mind adding me on Instagram? My sudden move caught Ethan off guard. The room burst into laughter, and Sophia's lips curved into a faint smirk. Ethan, looks like you're already a hit with the ladies as soon as you're back. Sophia didn't seem bothered by my actions. In fact, he looked rather pleased. Did he think I was trying to provoke him? Well, I wasn't. I held my phone steady, waiting patiently for Ethan's response. Reluctantly, Ethan added me as a friend, muttering under his breath, "Don't think just because I'm close with Sophia, I'm going to help you win him over. Fine, fine. I won't chase him, I'll chase you instead." Ethan's arrival unexpectedly gave me a reason to stay. When the gathering ended, Sophia naturally left with Emma. I fixed my gaze on Ethan and snuck up behind him while everyone else was distracted. "Ethan, could you give me a ride back to campus? It's late, and I can't find a cab." Ethan practically jumped away from me as if I'd startled him. "What? You want me to give you a ride? Are you serious?" All eyes turned toward us, curious about the commotion. I nodded earnestly. "They've all been drinking, and you're the only one who had juice." Afraid he might say no, I added quickly, "Besides, you wouldn't want something bad to happen to me on the way back, would you?" Ethan's face darkened instantly, clearly annoyed by my guilt-tripping. Even so, Sophia chimed in with a laugh, telling Ethan to go ahead and take me. Well, I had to admit, Sophia wasn't entirely useless in critical moments. Reluctantly, Ethan agreed. After all, when your friend speaks up, it's hard to refuse. The car ride was painfully awkward. 10 years ago, were you kidnapped? You better not think I'm going to help you win over Sophia. We both spoke at the same time, interrupting each other. Instead of answering his question, Ethan seemed genuinely surprised by mine. How do you know? My mind raced with a bold idea, and the more I thought about it, the more excited I felt. My fingers fidgeted with the seatbelt. It's nothing. I heard Sophia mention it once. He said he'd been kidnapped as a child too. Oh, so you're trying to get information about Sophia from me? Couldn't you be more direct? Yeah, that's exactly it. I just want to know more about him. HMPH. Ethan scoffed, and the car fell into silence once more. No rush, I'll take my time. As we neared campus, my phone rang. I deliberately put it on speaker. Liv, are you back at school yet? Swing by Emma's place and bring me some condoms, would you? Hurry up. As always, Sophia hung up immediately after speaking. I glanced at Ethan, noticing his furrowed brows. To spend more time with him, I stayed in the car. So, could you make one more stop for me? I gave him Emma's address. Ethan didn't say much, simply pressing down on the gas pedal. Halfway there, he seemed to be holding back, but eventually he couldn't resist asking, "Sophia, does he always do stuff like this?" I looked at him, confused. Huh. Like what? Ethan's discomfort was evident, like calling you late at night to deliver things. As he spoke, the tips of his ears turned slightly red. Oh, yeah, all the time. Another silence fell between us. Ethan's fingers drummed against the steering wheel, as if deep in thought. When we arrived at Emma's place, I quickly bought the items from the convenience store downstairs and headed up. Emma opened the door, wrapped in a towel, exuding a post-shower glow. "Liv, I'm so sorry for making you come out so late." Emma's neck was dotted with red marks, almost as if she wanted me to see them on purpose. Sophia came out too, took what I was holding, and waved me off impatiently. "All right, go home, it's so late." She closed the door as soon as she finished speaking. Right, it was late, yet she still wanted me to come over. As I walked downstairs, I thought Ethan had already left, but his car was still there. "Are you waiting for me?" I asked, opening the car door and slipping into the passenger seat. Ethan replied, "You're so annoying. Where do you get all this nonsense?" I chuckled quietly. "Do you really like Sophia that much? Do you know what people are saying about you?" Ethan suddenly asked. I blinked at him and said, "Of course I know, but what if I don't like Sophia? What if I like you instead?" Ethan bolted like a deer caught in headlights. Later, I picked up my phone and sent him a message. "To show my gratitude, I'll treat you to a proper day out when you have time." No response. But that was fine, I had plenty of patience. When I was 12, I was kidnapped by traffickers. They locked me in a pitch-dark room with other kids who had been abducted. Every day, another child would disappear. Eventually, only 5 of us were left, 3 girls and 2 boys. I was one of them. At that age, I was terrified. One of the boys tightly held my hand and tried to comfort me. "Don't be scared, I'll protect you. If they're going to sell someone, it'll be me first. Later, the traffickers came to pick someone. I became their target, but that boy stepped forward and switched places with me. I watched helplessly as he was taken away. Eventually, the police came. I was rescued. For a long time, I was consumed with guilt and worry. If I had been taken instead, would he have been saved? Not long after, Sophia's family moved next door to mine. Neighbors mentioned that Sophia had also been kidnapped, part of the same group as me. I secretly watched him through the window. I remembered the young boy had a red birthmark near his brow. Sophia, however, had a scar by the corner of her eye from the traffickers, replacing the birthmark with a harsh line. For a long time, Sophia refused to speak. Every day, I sat by her door with my snacks. Initially, she was hostile toward me, but I stubbornly stuck around. Over time, we became what we are now. It wasn't until I saw Ethan today that I realized I might have mistaken Sophia's identity from the very beginning. Over the past 10 years, I've tried to confirm Sophia's story, but she never wanted to talk about it. Every time I brought it up, she'd become unusually irritable. Her parents even took her to see a therapist, who diagnosed her with PTSD. The next morning, I glanced at my schedule. I had planned to invite Ethan to lunch and probe more about the past. Who would have thought my week was packed? With classes, I had to put it off for now. Sophia was busy dating Emma and didn't have time for me either. Surprisingly, Emma came back to the dorm. She claimed she wanted to apologize. "Liv, I'm really sorry about dating Sophia. I had no idea she was the person you've liked all these years. You're not mad at me, are you?" Her tone was so pretentious I could almost smell her sipping green tea. "Why would I be mad? I should be thanking you," I replied. If it weren't for her, I wouldn't have realized I'd been chasing the wrong person all this time. Zoe couldn't hold back and spoke up for me. "Oh, stop pretending. Don't act like you didn't know Sophia before this. Everyone knows she's the star of the computer science department. With someone backing me up, Emma couldn't resist throwing a jab. Sophia chased me for a whole month, with gifts and heartfelt confessions. Liv couldn't win her over and now blames me. Without me, it wouldn't have been you either. Sophia already told me she's so fed up with Liv. If it weren't for their childhood connection, she wouldn't even pay attention to Liv. She brushed her hair aside, revealing the red marks on her neck. Did you know? In Sophia's eyes, you're just a tag-along, doing whatever she asks. But instead of getting angry, I simply smiled at her. Thank you for telling me all this. Don't worry, I won't bother Sophia again. I wish you both happiness. Emma's attempt to provoke me had completely backfired. She looked as though she'd punched a pillow. What she didn't know was that I'd already shifted my focus. After Emma left, I pulled out my phone. Sure enough, there was a 1-hour call log. The moment she walked in, I deliberately dialed Ethan's number. I couldn't guarantee he'd pick up, but fortunately, everything went as planned. Sorry, I pressed the wrong button earlier. Did you hear all of that? And just like that, I had another excuse to talk to Ethan. He replied quickly. Yeah, so cold and indifferent I liked him even more. To say I had no feelings for Sophia would have been a lie. After all these years, it wasn't just about gratitude for saving me. But even the deepest affection can't survive repeated indifference. I've been meaning to take you out somewhere. Are you free today? The few minutes of waiting made my palms sweat with nerves. Ethan finally replied, I'm busy, maybe next time. During that time, Sophia called me several times, but I hung up each time. I didn't even need to think about it. Emma must have gone to complain to her, and now she wanted an explanation from me. I didn't answer Sophia's calls, but I didn't expect her to show up and corner me in person. Liv, why aren't you answering my calls? She asked. I dodged her hand as she reached out to tousle my hair and replied coldly, I didn't want to answer. Do I need a reason for that? Her hand froze in midair as she stared at me in disbelief. Whatever was going through her head, she suddenly broke into a smile, her lips curling into a faint arc. Are you mad at Emma? I've already broken up with her. Don't be upset, okay? I didn't know whether to laugh or scream. For once, I looked Sophia directly in the eye, tearing apart the flimsy veil between us. Sophia, don't pretend you don't know that I like you. Why are you doing this? To keep stringing me along. To make sure you don't lose the one person always at your beck and call. And by the way, did you really break up with Emma because of me? Or was it just that you got bored, found a convenient excuse to dump her, and decided to frame me for it? Don't make yourself sound so noble. Sophia firmly denied it, insisting I wasn't some kind of doormat for her. When I pressed her further, she scowled and asked, How long are you going to keep this up? We've always been like this, why are you suddenly acting differently now? She was right, we had always been like this. No matter how many women came and went in Sophia's life, as soon as I got upset, she'd break things off with them immediately. Over the years, she'd had countless girlfriends, but I was the one constant in her life. So what? I said. I'm supposed to watch you fall in love, flirt with other women, and then show up late at night to deliver food to you whenever you call. Come when summoned, leave when dismissed. Sophia's brows furrowed again, and she let out a soft tusk before asking, Then what do you want? Her question was ridiculous. What do I want? Hasn't it always been about what she wants? Sophia, I said, my voice calm but resolute, I don't want anything. What I'm saying is, I don't want us to be anything anymore. From now on, let's just go our separate ways. If we see each other, let's treat each other like strangers. As I finished, it felt like a huge weight had been lifted off my chest. Without Ethan, I thought, I wouldn't have had the strength to do this. Sophia crossed her arms and said, Fine, Olivia, you're the one who said this. Don't come crying to me later. Sophia and I had been fighting since we were kids, and every single time, I was the one to back down first. Over time, she'd grown accustomed to always having the upper hand. All right, I replied. I didn't care whether Sophia thought I was joking. All I knew was that if I didn't leave now, I'd be late for class. When I rushed into the classroom, the bell had just rung. Emma was sitting in the front row, and as soon as I walked in, she glared at me with a look of pure venom. Even with layers of concealer, the redness and puffiness around her eyes and the dark circles beneath them were still visible. It seemed she really had been dumped, and somehow I'd been blamed for it. By the end of class, I'd received countless glares and had even earned the nickname Backup Girl. But I didn't care about any of it because Ethan had finally agreed to go out with me. I texted him the location of the school building, and before long, a sleek sports car pulled up in front of me. The moment I got in, Ethan said, Did you and Sophia have a fight? I couldn't believe it. Here I was thinking he genuinely wanted to see me, and instead, he was here to mediate on Sophia's behalf. I reached for the door handle to get out, but Ethan locked the doors before I could leave. What? I snapped. Are you here to plead her case? No, I was just asking. Don't get the wrong idea, he said, stepping on the gas. It wasn't until we'd been driving for a while that he finally asked, somewhat hesitantly, "Where to?" Once I realized he wasn't here to talk about Sophia, my anger subsided. "Let's go to Elmwood Road. There's a little shop there that makes amazing dumplings," I said. As I spoke, I sneaked a glance at Ethan, trying to gauge his reaction. Sure enough, he paused for a moment and gave me a curious look. I'd mentioned that dumpling shop on Elmwood Road as a test. Back when we'd been kidnapped as kids, I'd told him I wanted to eat those dumplings. "If we ever get out of here," I'd said, "I'll take you to Elmwood Road and buy you the best dumplings in the world." "Deal," he'd replied. "We have to go." It had taken 10 years to fulfill the promise two frightened kids had made to each other in the face of the unknown. I'd taken Sophia there once, but she hadn't cared for it. At the time, I thought she'd just forgotten. 2 bowls of dumplings, no scallions or cilantro, I told the shop owner out of habit. Then I turned to Ethan and asked, "You don't like scallions or cilantro, right?" Ethan's gaze lingered on me for a moment, and a barely there smile tugged at the corners of his lips. "I don't." I had to admit, Ethan was incredibly handsome. With his jet black hair neatly trimmed, a simple yet stylish tracksuit, and a tall, athletic build, he exuded an effortless charm. His sharp features were striking, and his dark eyes, accentuated by a small beauty mark at the corner, gave him an air of intrigue. I couldn't help but stare. That was, until a hand waved in front of my face. "What are you looking at?" Ethan asked, leaning closer without me even noticing. My face turned bright red, and I quickly lowered my head, walking straight into the restaurant. "Let's sit here," I said, eager to change the subject. The owner of the wonton shop worked quickly. As soon as Ethan and I sat down, the steaming bowl of wontons was already placed on the table. We ate in near silence, the atmosphere as quiet as a study session in a library. "You're right. These are really good," Ethan said as he finished the last wonton and wiped his mouth, his gaze clouded with an unreadable expression. For a moment, I wasn't sure if he was responding to me or to the version of me from 10 years ago. Just as I was about to ask him the question lingering in my mind, a male voice interrupted. "Ethan, Olivia, what are you two doing here?" I didn't even need to turn around to know who it was. Sophia, that big idiot. Sophia strolled in holding Emma's hand, helping her wipe down the chair before she sat across from us. How thoughtful of him. So he does have hands after all. Back when Sophia and I used to come to this very same wonton shop, he always complained about the chairs and tables being dirty. Every single time, I had to use disinfectant wipes to clean everything before he'd reluctantly settle his precious self down. Emma shot me a smug smile. I ignored her completely. Sophia, on the other hand, smirked. "Olivia, were you using my friends to sweet-talk me again?" "Oh, right. After one of our fights, Sophia had blocked me and refused to talk. In desperation, I had taken his friends out for meals, trying to get them on my side. His assumption wasn't far off. Olivia mentioned this place had amazing wontons. I've been away for 10 years and barely recognize anything here, so she offered to guide me," Ethan explained casually, having already paid the bill. He turned to me. "Shall we?" I nodded, not sparing Sophia even a glance. Once outside, I finally spoke up. "Thanks for earlier." "No need to thank me, I was just telling the truth." I wanted to say more to continue the conversation, but Ethan's research institute called, leaving me no choice but to head back to campus. "Liv, tomorrow's New Year's Eve. Got any plans?" Zoe asked suddenly after class. It hit me then tomorrow was New Year's Eve. Time flew. Every year before this, I had spent New Year's Eve with Sophia. This year, things were different. I pulled out my phone and sent Ethan a message. His reply came after what felt like ages. "Tomorrow, I'm free." "What's up?" I thought for a moment before coming up with a clumsy excuse. "I'm struggling with my thesis. Can you help me out?" Ethan was known to be a genius. No one would question me asking him for academic help. What I overlooked, however, was that he was a physics major while I studied literature. The two couldn't be further apart. I fully expected him to decline. To my surprise, he agreed. "Sure, I'll pick you up tomorrow." That night, I rifled through my wardrobe, finding nothing suitable to wear. If it weren't so late, I'd have gone shopping for a new outfit. Predictably, I was too excited to sleep and ended up with dark circles under my eyes. "Wow, those bags under your eyes are impressive. Trying to become a panda, are you?" Ethan teased when he arrived. I rolled my eyes. "You wouldn't understand. It's a trendy look right now." It was then I noticed that Ethan, usually so laid back, was dressed unusually formally. His hair was neatly combed, not a strand out of place. "Where's your laptop? Aren't we working on your thesis?" So it wasn't just my imagination, Ethan really had come to help with my thesis. Despite being a physics major, he had an impressive grasp of history. The articles I had struggled with for days, he referenced effortlessly, citing key points. Before I knew it, I was completely absorbed in the discussion. One revision led to another, and we ended up working at the cafe until it was dark. Only when my stomach growled embarrassingly did I snap out of it. Ethan smirked. "How about you treat me to dinner?" Sure. Ethan chose a garden restaurant. As I scanned the menu, my heart sank. My family wasn't exactly poor, but my parents were strict about my allowance, wanting me to understand the value of money. Looking at these prices, I couldn't help but feel like other people were profiting off my hard-earned savings a little too easily. In the end, Ethan paid the bill. By the time we left, it was 9 o'clock. I racked my brain for an excuse to spend the rest of the evening with Ethan and cross into the new year together. That's when my savior arrived. Sophia called. "Liv, I'm feeling sick. Can you pick up some medicine for me?" His voice sounded weak. I was about to tell him to go to the hospital because I wasn't a doctor. But then an idea struck me, and I changed my tone. "Sure, I'll grab it for you." Sophia was just a piece in my little game. I turned to Ethan. "Want to come with me to deliver some medicine?" He sounded pretty unwell. Ethan shot me a sideways glance, his tone laced with mockery. "A true lapdog, aren't you?" I silently seethed. "I am not." Still, Ethan turned the car towards Sophia's apartment. The drive was agonizingly slow. Ethan crawled along at 15 miles per hour, careful not to skid on the snowy roads. By the time the 15th old man on a bicycle overtook us, I couldn't hold it in anymore. "Why are you driving so slowly?" "Snowy roads are slippery. Safety first." A trip that should have taken 30 minutes stretched into an hour. When we finally arrived, I handed the medicine to Ethan. "You go up. I'll wait in the car." "You're not coming?" Ethan asked, raising an eyebrow. I want to say, the only reason I agreed to his request was so I could spend more time with you. Do you believe me? Ethan stepped out of the car and nearly tripped over his own feet. I couldn't hold back my laughter. What a clumsy little thing. Don't think I didn't notice ever since I took Sophia's call. Ethan had been giving off an unmistakable, stay away vibe. I had no idea what Ethan and Sophia talked about upstairs, but when he came back down, there was a bruise at the corner of his mouth. "Did Sophia hit you? Who does she think she is?" I almost jumped up in outrage, and if Ethan hadn't stopped me, I would have stormed back up to confront her. "Relax, it's nothing. She just slipped." Like I'd believe that. But since Ethan didn't seem to want to make a big deal out of it, I decided to let it go. On the way back, I stared out the window and suddenly shouted, "Stop the car, pull over, I need to grab something." When I returned, I was holding a small bag of medicine. In a firm, no-nonsense tone, I said, "Come here. Let me treat your wound." Ethan leaned his face close to mine and shut his eyes. What a devil. His skin was so fair, so smooth. His soft, bouncy cheeks looked like they'd be incredibly satisfying to kiss. "Why aren't you applying the medicine yet?" Ethan suddenly opened his eyes, and I accidentally got lost in his deep gaze. To cover up my awkwardness, I hurriedly treated his wound without saying another word. When we reached the dorm building, I was just about to get out when Ethan called out to me. He leaned out the car window and handed me a small box. "Liv, Happy New Year." The distant fireworks and shouts of "Happy New Year" from the dormitory faded into the background. All that filled my mind was Ethan's words. "Liv, Happy New Year." After that night, Ethan and I started talking more frequently. At first, it was just me initiating conversations, sharing bits of my daily life with him. Slowly, he began to respond more often. When I had a terrible meal at the cafeteria, I'd complain to him. The cafeteria cook must have had a fight with his wife today. He added so much vinegar it's so sour, I can barely eat it. Ethan immediately called me, his laughter barely contained. "Is it really that bad?" I patted my empty stomach and sighed helplessly. It's awful whenever the cafeteria cook has a fight with his wife, the food turns out terrible. I'm just collateral damage in their little drama. Something about what I said must have hit Ethan's funny bone because he completely lost it, laughing out loud. I hung up the phone in a fit of mock indignation. It wasn't until later that I realized he had taken the initiative to call me just now. And I hung up on him. What was I doing? I was about to type out an explanation when Ethan's message popped up. Come downstairs. What did he mean? Zoe, who was hanging clothes on the balcony, poked her head in. Liv, I think there's a handsome guy waiting for you downstairs. I rushed out to take a look. It was Ethan. Zoe, do I look terrible? Should I wash my hair before I go down? Zoe, the only one who knew about my hidden feelings, quickly pushed me out the door. You look amazing. Go now. For the first time, I realized it only took 40 seconds to get from the third floor to the first. When I reached Ethan, I was out of breath, my face flushed from running. You were in such a hurry to see me, huh? My face turned even redder. At this point, I decided to just embrace the embarrassment. I had no dignity left anyway. Of course I'm in a hurry to see someone I like. The words came out before I could stop myself, and as soon as they did, I felt incredibly awkward. But in that moment, it felt like something was beginning to take root inside me. Ethan was the one who broke the tension. He held up a food container and said, "Well, I rushed over to bring you dinner too." God help me, I was falling for him hook, line, and sinker. Feeling dazed, I took the insulated container from him, not even sure how I ended up back in my room upstairs. But someone else had been watching, and soon the news reached Sophia's ears. She stormed over to confront me. If you're doing this just to spite me, congratulations, you've succeeded. Emma and I are nothing. We broke up ages ago, and the reconciliation was just a ploy to provoke you. Olivia, stop using Ethan to get back at me. I'm willing to date you, she repeated herself. Olivia, I'll be with you. Just stop using Ethan as a pawn. I'd liked Sophia for years, but at this moment, I realized I didn't want to be with her anymore. I had merely grown accustomed to chasing after her, afraid of losing the boy who had once been my everything. But now, I couldn't shake the thought of Ethan. I wanted to ask him, was it really him all those years ago? Was he the one who had been taken by traffickers? Was he the one who promised to share a bowl of wonton soup with me? I shook off Sophia's hand urgently. I don't like you anymore, Sophia. Please don't bother me again. Ethan's research institute was far from campus, but I ran the entire way there. What are you doing here? Ethan asked, wearing a crisp white lab coat that made him look even more mature and composed. Out of breath, I asked him haltingly, was it you were you kidnapped 12 years ago? Was it you who walked up to those traffickers for the sake of a little girl? Was it you who promised to go to Lincoln Street for wonton soup with her? After a long pause, he finally answered softly, yes. In that moment, it felt like fireworks exploded inside my mind. The day you treated me to wontons, I recognized you, Ethan said, his voice steady yet tinged with vulnerability. But everyone kept saying you were in love with Sophia, so deeply that you couldn't possibly love anyone else. I didn't know if the me, 10 years too late, still had a chance to stand by your side. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Then, why did you agree to have wontons with me? Because I've been craving that bowl of wontons for 10 years. That day, Ethan and I talked about so many things. I told him that I had mistaken someone else for him all these years. I told him that I hadn't liked Sophia for a very long time. Not long after, Ethan and I naturally fell into a relationship. At his insistence, we took a photo together and posted it on social media. Within 10 minutes, his phone practically exploded with notifications. Sophia called him repeatedly, her calls relentless. Suddenly, I remembered something. Wait, so on New Year's Eve, Sophia hit you because you told him you liked me? Yup, took a punch, got a wife, totally worth it. Soon, everyone knew that Olivia and Ethan were officially a couple. Ethan's perspective. 10 years ago, Sophia and I were abducted by traffickers. Watching the number of children around us dwindle day by day, I knew it would soon be our turn. There was one little girl who stood out from the rest. She had the most ear-piercing, unbearable cries I'd ever heard. She was impossible to ignore. Eventually, there were only 5 of us left. That day, the traffickers came in, and I knew they were going to take her next. Thinking about how awful her crying was, I made a decision. Better me than her, at least I wouldn't have to listen to that wailing anymore. Luckily, I got out of it safely. Not long after I was taken away, the police showed up. I was relieved to find out she had been rescued too. After that ordeal, my parents decided they couldn't leave me alone in the country anymore. They took me with them when they moved abroad. Sophia has always been a good friend, and we've stayed in touch over the years. From his stories, I learned about a girl who annoyed him endlessly. He jokingly called her a puppy dog. For 10 years, Sophia never stopped griping about how clingy and irritating this girl was. Sometimes, I couldn't help but wonder who was more annoying, the girl or Sophia's endless complaints about her. The first time I met Olivia, Sophia had already warned me. Whatever you do, don't be nice to her. If she latches onto you, she'll just use you to get information about me. Seriously, don't give her the time of day. But when she asked to add me as a friend, for some reason, I said yes anyway. She asked me to walk her home, and then, out of nowhere, she asked if I had been kidnapped 10 years ago. My brain froze. She asked me out a few more times after that, but remembering Sophia's words, I turned her down. Then, one day, I saw her post on social media about wanting to go to a little diner on Maple Street for wontons. An inexplicable feeling rose in my chest. Before I knew it, I had agreed to meet her. The way she talked about those wontons, it was so similar to how that girl from my memories had sounded. Sophia has PTSD and couldn't handle talking about the past, so I asked his dad instead. That's when I found out Olivia had also been kidnapped 10 years ago. That's when I knew she was my wonton girl. When Olivia invited me to spend New Year's Eve with her, I agreed without hesitation. While discussing her thesis, a conversation that should have taken mere minutes stretched into an entire day. Yeah, she definitely didn't know I was doing it on purpose. When I went to drop off medicine for Sophia, he was shocked to see me. You and Olivia? Seriously? I told him the truth, I liked Olivia. He punched me. But hey, one punch for a wife, totally worth it. When I walked her back to her dorm, I finally found the perfect moment to give her the gift I'd prepared in advance. I kept wondering when I should tell her the truth. At the same time, I was afraid she might still have feelings for Sophia. For someone who's never been afraid of challenges, this was a first for me. In the end, I have to thank Sophia. Without him, we might have kept missing each other. Thanks to his meddling, Olivia and I finally found our way to each other. End of the first story. Subscribe to my channel if you like my stories. Don't miss the second exciting story. Story 2. After the divorce, he admitted I was his true love. The year Olivia's childhood sweetheart's family went bankrupt, his family used every possible means to force him to marry me. From then on, he harbored endless resentment toward me, parading around with one mistress after another. Recently, however, he seemed to have undergone a change. He was no longer cold and dismissive, but instead started treating me with kindness, even bringing me a luxury gift from LU every week. I thought he had finally decided to focus on our family until one day, I saw a text from someone saved as LU sales rep Emma. "Olivia, when exactly are you going to divorce her and bring me home?" He replied indulgently, "Be patient, baby. Soon." Later, I discovered that Emma, whose family had gone bankrupt, had taken up a job as a luxury sales associate. I chuckled coldly, silently thanking him for delivering evidence of his infidelity straight to me on a silver platter. He had always assumed that I couldn't leave him, but what he didn't realize was that when he married me, he was the one aiming too high. Olivia didn't come home until nearly midnight. I had just finished reviewing a file in the study and was stepping out when I saw him stumble in, reeking of alcohol. He carelessly tossed his coat onto the floor, a bright orange luxury shopping bag in hand, before collapsing onto the couch. I placed a glass of water in front of him. Another business dinner. The next moment, he threw the shopping bag onto the table with a dissatisfied grunt. "You're really nosy, aren't you? Since when is it any of your business whether I go to dinner or not?" He sneered, rising unsteadily to his feet. His fingers gripped my chin tightly, forcing me to meet his eyes. "Or have you started thinking of yourself as my wife for real? Do you believe that by being devoted and attentive to me every day, you'll make me fall in love with you? Let me tell you something, you're dreaming." With that, he shoved me away abruptly. I stumbled, losing my balance, and fell to the ground. My back slammed hard against the corner of the coffee table. 3 years ago, a piece of paper bound my life to Olivia's. It was only later that I learned his childhood sweetheart's family had gone bankrupt, and he had been desperate to save her, willing to risk everything. But his parents had intervened, forcing him into marrying me by any means necessary. Since then, Olivia had harbored an unrelenting grudge against me. He humiliated me in both private and public and flaunted one mistress after another without a care. My thoughts snapped back to the present. Olivia towered over me, his gaze condescending and filled with disdain. "Do you know why I haven't touched you even once in these 3 years?" he sneered. "Because just looking at you is revolting. Men like soft, gentle women, not someone as stubborn as you." With that, he stormed upstairs, leaving me alone in the sprawling living room. I gritted my teeth, struggling to get up from the floor. For 6 years, his attitude toward me had been nothing short of cruel. I had mentioned divorce before, but Olivia always refused. The reason was simple. He wanted to keep me as his wife so he could humiliate me at his leisure. But 2 months ago, he suddenly seemed like a different person, bringing home his first gift, an LU handbag. Though it wasn't particularly expensive, I thought it was a sign of his willingness to mend our broken marriage. But as the weeks passed and I continued to receive LU items, I started to sense that something was off. Just as I was lost in thought, I heard the faint buzz of a phone vibrating. Following the sound, I saw Olivia's phone sticking out of the coat he had tossed on the ground. Almost instinctively, I walked over and picked it up. The moment I saw the message on the screen, I froze. "Did you make it home, darling?" Poor thing, having to go back to that vicious woman again. The text was from someone saved as LU Sales Rep Emma. I paused, but I wasn't surprised. After all, this wasn't the first time I had seen such messages in the past 3 years. There had even been mistresses who came to confront me directly. In the beginning, I would argue and fight with him, but over time, I lost interest in playing along. I opened their chat history, intending to see what tricks this woman had up her sleeve to keep Olivia entertained for 2 whole months. When I saw her profile picture, my heart turned cold. It was a face I knew all too well. The woman wasn't just anyone, it was his bankrupt childhood sweetheart, Emmy. Their messages were nauseatingly intimate, crossing every boundary. My eyes lingered on her question, "Olivia, when exactly are you going to divorce her and bring me home?" And his affectionate reply, "Be patient, baby, soon." I couldn't help but laugh. So, all those luxury items in my closet were nothing more than trophies from their affair. Olivia had been flaunting his infidelity in my face all along. It was impressive, really. The allure of his white moonlight was so powerful that even a man who had sworn never to divorce me was now desperate to do so for her. Well, I'd gladly grant them their wish, but not without making them pay dearly for it. The next morning, I was in the middle of a meeting when my assistant rushed in, flustered. "Sophia, there's a woman named Emmy outside demanding to see you," she whispered. "I don't know what's going on, but it's causing quite a scene." I smirked, rising from my chair. I had been planning to pay her a visit after work, but it seemed she couldn't wait to come to me first. When I returned to my office, the executive suite was already packed with onlookers, eager to watch the drama unfold. From a distance, I spotted Emma standing in the center of the crowd with her arms crossed. As I approached, she sneered triumphantly and said, "I thought Olivia married someone impressive, but it turns out it's just someone like you." Before I could respond to her mocking tone, my assistant's face darkened and she charged forward. I acted quickly, stopping her in her tracks. "Maddie, notify the security team. Let them know it's time to clear out the riffraff." Maddie nodded obediently and stepped back. Clearly, Emma had picked up on my insinuation, but she didn't let it faze her. Instead, she sauntered toward me with a smirk. "Sophia, you're such a failure. 3 years of marriage to Olivia, and yet the only person in her heart has always been me. She hasn't touched you once during these 3 years, you know." Her voice was loud, as if she wanted the entire office to know. She then covered her mouth, chuckled mockingly, and continued, "As a woman, I honestly feel bad for you. Olivia doesn't love you, sure, but I bet even if you stripped naked in front of her, she wouldn't react." I remained indifferent, staring at Emma in silence. My lack of response only seemed to agitate her further. "Don't pretend. I know your heart must be in turmoil right now. Let me tell you something else," she added with a smug grin. "All those designer items Olivia's been giving you recently, she bought them through me. But do you know why she went through me? Because it was all just to humiliate you." "Ha ha ha," Emma rambled on, implying that Olivia had been faithful to her for years, keeping herself pure for her sake. I couldn't help but laugh at the thought. Fixing my sharp gaze on her, I said, "It's amazing how brazen mistresses are these days, showing up to confront the wife face to face." With that, I leisurely pulled out my phone, scrolling through the photos I'd taken from Olivia's phone the night before. Holding it up for the onlookers, I said, "Take a look, everyone." It turns out that buying a few designer items gets you exclusive, artistic photos of Miss Emma here, and even some other things that are far less appropriate. The messages between Emma and Olivia were explicit, and everyone who saw them frowned in disgust. I put my phone away, turned to Emma's now frozen expression, and chuckled. "You really thought Olivia has been loyal to you all this time? Sure, she hasn't touched me, but she's had plenty of other women. You're just a salesperson. How did you end up selling yourself too? Actually, I'm quite curious. After I divorce Olivia, will she still want to buy this particular item from you?" Emma's face turned red with rage. She raised her hand to strike me, but before she could, I slapped her first. The sound echoed sharply in the room as she stood there, stunned, holding her cheek. "You dare hit me? Aren't you afraid Olivia will come after you?" she spat. I raised an eyebrow, casually pulling out my phone and dialing Olivia's number. The mechanical ringing dragged on before she finally answered impatiently. "Sophia, this better be important." I let out a cold laugh. "Oh, it's not urgent. But your dear Emmy here is sitting in my office crying her eyes out after I slapped her. Thought you might want to come and defend her honor." "Sophia, you're asking for it," Olivia shouted angrily. Before she could say more, I hung up. Turning to the tearful Emma, I smirked and said, "I've called your backup. Don't say I didn't give you a fighting chance." Within half an hour, Olivia stormed into the office, fuming. As soon as Emma saw her, she ran into her arms, sobbing uncontrollably. "Olivia, I only wanted to tell her that you don't love her and should let go. But she hit me. You have to stand up for me." Olivia's expression softened immediately as she embraced Emma, her voice gentle as she comforted her. "Don't worry, sweetheart. Now that I'm here, no one will bully you." In 3 years of marriage, Olivia had never once spoken to me this way. Watching this scene unfold, I felt a strange discomfort in my heart. I was certain I didn't love Olivia. But still, seeing my husband, someone I had shared my life with for 3 years, never treat me kindly, and instead blame me for everything. It was undeniably pathetic. Thankfully, I didn't love her. If I did, this would have hurt a lot more. After soothing Emma, Olivia turned her cold, menacing gaze toward me. "Kneel," her voice was commanding, and the crowd froze in shock. I offered a mocking smile. "What if I don't?" "Olivia, for 3 years, I have never done anything to wrong you," I said, my tone calm but firm. "Your breakup with Emma wasn't my fault, yet you've pinned all the blame on me." Finally, after 3 years of enduring this, I felt a sense of relief as I continued. "But let me be blunt. If you truly loved her, you wouldn't be keeping so many lovers on the side. You think you've humiliated me? The only thing you've humiliated is your so-called undying love for her." As soon as the words left Emma's mouth, she turned to look at Olivia in shock. Her lips moved as though she wanted to say something, but all that came out was a trembling question. "So, everything she said is true? You didn't touch her, but you sought out countless other women." Olivia was rendered speechless by the question, unable to offer any defense. For a moment, she forgot even to explain. Then, with a cold, mocking laugh, she turned her sharp gaze toward me. "This whole scene you've caused today is just because I haven't loved you for the past 3 years. You feel humiliated, and that's why you're acting out," she said. "But Sophia," she continued, her voice dripping with arrogance, "I can still tell you this. Even if you keep up this nonsense, I will never fall in love with you." I stared at her, baffled by her confidence. Where did she get the audacity to believe such things? With a calm and detached tone, I asked, "Who ever gave you the ridiculous notion that my tolerance was out of love for you? Isn't it?" Olivia responded instantly, her smile smug and full of self-assurance. "Why else would you put up with all this for 3 years and never ask for a divorce? Isn't it because you're hopelessly in love with me?" I was at a loss for words. I stared at her, unwilling to dignify her claim with a response. But my silence only seemed to fuel her confidence. "As you've seen," Olivia added, her tone laced with disdain, "even if I were to be with someone I've just met, I would still never choose you. Someone like you, there's no chance I'd ever feel anything for you, not in this lifetime." With that, she grabbed Emma, who was still teary-eyed, and made to leave. Watching the two of them walk away, I felt nothing but exhaustion, both physical and emotional. Just as they passed by me, I took a deep breath and called out, "Wait a moment, Olivia." She let out a chuckle, her eyes full of smug confidence, as though everything was playing out just as she had planned. If you still want to be Mrs. Carter, you'd better beg me properly. Who knows, if I'm in a good mood, I might let you keep the title for a bit longer. Sophia, get down on your knees and beg me. I let out a soft laugh, my voice dripping with derision. Forget it. The title of Mrs. Carter suits her better anyway, I said with a nod toward Emma. After all, haven't the two of you been happily in love for a while now? Let's get a divorce, Olivia. With that, I turned and strode toward my office without sparing her another glance. I didn't see the flash of shock and panic that crossed her face. The divorce proceedings went smoothly. I managed to claim a good portion of the marital assets we had accumulated over the past 3 years. After all, she was the one who had been unfaithful. I was merely taking what I deserved. Surprisingly, the divorce didn't weigh heavily on my emotions. If anything, it was the adjustment to single life that took some getting used to. One evening, I had plans to meet up with friends to celebrate a birthday. After a grueling day at work, I hopped into my car and headed to the party. As I neared my friend's house in a suburban neighborhood, my phone rang. Glancing at the screen, I saw Olivia's name flashing. I hesitated for a moment before declining the call. If my memory served me correctly, everything in our divorce agreement had already been settled. But the calls didn't stop. She called again, and again. By the 4th or 5th time, an inexplicable anger began to simmer within me. Grumbling, I reached for my phone, but just as I did, a loud crash shattered the night. The impact sent everything in my car flying. My mind went blank as darkness swiftly overtook me. The sharp, sterile smell of disinfectant filled my nostrils as I regained consciousness. My head throbbed and my body ached. Slowly, I opened my eyes. The first thing I saw was a tall figure in a white coat, his back toward me. He was jotting something down in a notebook. For some reason, the sight of him felt strangely familiar. As I stared, lost in thought, he turned around. Our eyes met, colliding in the still air without warning. He was wearing a mask, obscuring most of his face, but something about his calm, composed demeanor and those deep, penetrating eyes made it hard to look away. You were in a car accident. The other driver was entirely at fault, he said, his tone clinical yet detached. From the full body scans we conducted, you appear to be mostly fine. However, your right hand is fractured, and you have multiple abrasions on your forehead and legs. You'll need to rest and recover for a while. I stared at him, my mind still foggy. His words barely registered. Noticing my blank expression, he cleared his throat and spoke more sternly. Sophia, are you listening? How do you know my name? I blurted out, my confusion evident. Though his mask concealed his expression, the exasperation in his voice was unmistakable. He tapped my medical chart with his pen and said, "Looks like I'll need to schedule a brain CT for tomorrow. You seem a bit." Slow, I was left speechless. Then, as if suddenly curious, he asked, "Where's your husband? Why hasn't he come to see you yet?" His question caught me off guard, since when were hospitals this considerate? Did they now keep track of patients' marital statuses and even concern themselves with absent spouses? When I didn't answer, he sighed, pulled a phone out of his pocket, and tossed it onto my blanket. His tone turned noticeably colder. "While you were unconscious, your husband called you numerous times." With that, he left the room without so much as a backward glance. I watched his retreating figure until it disappeared entirely. "That doctor is really something else," I muttered under my breath. Just as the words left my lips, the phone on my blanket buzzed again. I picked it up and saw Olivia's name flashing on the screen. Memories of the accident flooded back the crash had happened because I'd been reaching to answer her call. Anger surged within me as I stared at the screen. I immediately felt he was an incredibly unlucky person to be around. Without a second thought, I hung up the call, blocked his number, and deleted him from my contacts. Due to my fractured bone and a few other minor injuries, I was kept in the hospital for observation. It wasn't until the next day that I phoned my parents. Before long, my mom came rushing to the hospital in a whirlwind of worry. "Why didn't you tell us right away?" she asked, a trace of reproach in her tone. Then, glancing around the empty room, she added, "Where's Olivia? You've been in a car accident, and she doesn't even come to check on you." I know things haven't been great between the two of you these past few years, but for her not to show up now. That's infuriating, she continued while fishing out her phone to call Olivia. Seeing this, I immediately stopped her. Actually, there's something I've been meaning to tell, Mrs. Lin, long time no see. A gentle male voice interrupted me. I turned toward the source of the voice, only to see a tall man in a white coat with strikingly handsome features striding into the room. The moment my mom saw him, her anger melted away. She stood up in surprise, smiling warmly. "Ethan, when did you return? Your parents didn't even mention it," she said, grabbing his arm in a gesture of affection. The name Ethan immediately registered in my mind, and I suddenly realized why he seemed so familiar. Ethan gave a calm, polite smile and replied, "It's been over a year since I came back. I've been helping my dad at the hospital, so I haven't had a chance to visit you and Mr. Song yet." Then, turning his attention to me, he said, "Long time no see, Sophia." My mom stayed in the hospital for a few hours, chatting away with Ethan. I finally had to shoo her off, worried that she was keeping him from his work. The large hospital room became eerily quiet as soon as it was just the two of us. The atmosphere felt inexplicably awkward. "Does it still hurt?" he asked. "How have you been?" I asked at the same time. Ethan gazed at me silently for a moment before breaking into a small smile. "I've been good." "And you?" "I've been good too," I replied. After that exchange, we simply stared at each other without speaking. Perhaps sensing the tension, Ethan chuckled softly. Before I could react, he reached out and ruffled my hair playfully. "Sophie's all grown up now, and she's become a stranger to me," he teased. That gesture instantly brought back a flood of memories. Ethan and I had grown up together. He was an excellent student who had taken on the role of tutoring me from a young age. Whenever I did well on a test and told him about it, he would always ruffle my hair with a gentle smile and say, "Sophie is the best. I knew you could do it." This bond lasted until my senior year of high school. By then, Ethan was already in college, and we saw each other less frequently. Yet, my longing for him only grew stronger because he was the first and only person I had ever loved. Before my college entrance exams, my dad gave me two options: study abroad or stay in our hometown. My immediate thought was to stay, so I could attend the same university as Ethan. That way, we could be together again. A week before the exams, I did something out of character. I went out drinking with friends. By the time Ethan arrived to pick me up, I was already drunk. He wanted to take me home, but I threw a tantrum and insisted he carry me. With a helpless laugh, he took off his jacket, draped it over me, and carried me on his back. Maybe it was the alcohol talking, but that night, while on his back, I confessed my feelings to him, but it felt like I was rejected. I still remember his exact words. "Sophie, you've got your exams coming up. You need to focus on your studies. Let's talk about this after your exams, okay?" Swallowing the lump in my throat, I agreed. But after I got into the same university as Ethan, I discovered that he often spent time with a beautiful, elegant girl. I even saw her crying in his arms once. I felt betrayed, convinced that Ethan had lied to me. This led to a massive argument where I said a lot of hurtful things. Not long after, I started dating someone else out of spite. But Ethan didn't seem to care. Shortly afterward, he transferred to a university abroad. If my memory serves me right, that girl left for the same country around the same time. As my thoughts returned to the present, I realized that even after all these years, the memories still left a bitter taste in my mouth. Just as I was about to respond to Ethan with some polite but distant words, someone burst into the room. Before either Ethan or I could react, I was pulled into a tight embrace. A familiar voice whispered in my ear, "Soph, thank God you're okay." The already awkward atmosphere became unbearably tense with the arrival of Olivia. Ethan took a step back, now standing off to the side. "I called you at least 100 times last night, and you didn't pick up." "I was going out of my mind," Olivia said, releasing me. Her eyes were slightly red as she continued, "I spent all night tracking down your location. Your mom finally told me about the accident." "I'm so sorry, Soph. I should have been there for you. I shouldn't have let this happen to you." I had no idea what she was trying to pull. Just as I was about to question her, I realized Ethan had quietly left the room without either of us noticing. Originally, Ethan and I barely exchanged a few words before he abruptly left as soon as Olivia appeared. My already complicated emotions were suddenly tinged with a trace of anger. I glared at Olivia with annoyance. "Are you out of your mind? We're divorced. If you keep this up, I could accuse you of harassment," I snapped. Olivia's face showed a fleeting hint of pain from my harsh words, but that expression was quickly replaced by a smile. Without waiting for my permission, she took my hand, her eyes brimming with an unfathomable depth of emotion. I called you last night because, after the divorce, I realized how difficult it was to adjust, she began. I've been reflecting on myself all this time, and I came to understand that at some point, I had already fallen for you, the strong, capable, and resilient woman that you are. Wait, I interrupted her abruptly, holding up my hand. Olivia, have you lost your mind? I haven't, she replied with a gentle smile before continuing. I used to wonder why I could so easily accept being with strangers but avoided physical closeness with you. It's because, deep down, I felt unworthy of you. As the only daughter in your family, you bore the weight of an entire company and achieved remarkable success. As my wife, you were endlessly understanding and forgiving. I hurt you, yes, but it was because I loved you. In the most cowardly way, I wanted your attention solely on me. Sophia, I truly know I was wrong. Can you give me another chance? I stared at Olivia, momentarily at a loss for words. I heard everything she said, yet I couldn't make sense of it. So I sneered and asked, so what you're saying is, the reason you kept running off and sleeping with other women was because you loved me and feared losing me? Olivia, the person who should be lying in this hospital bed is you, not me. Faced with my cold response, she didn't react with anger like she used to. Instead, she curved her lips into a faint smile. I know you're still mad about the stupid things I did before, but I truly regret them now. You can hit me, yell at me, whatever you need. I just want to be by your side, even if... Get out, I cut her off sharply, my voice raised in anger. This time, I finally saw genuine sadness in Olivia's eyes. She took a deep breath, forcing a small smile as she reached out, trying to hold my hand again. But I recoiled as though her touch were something filthy, quickly tucking my hand back under the blanket. Soph, she murmured. Leave now and don't make me repeat myself. Olivia stood there, silently watching me for a long time. Once she was sure I wasn't joking or acting out of spite, she slowly rose and walked toward the door. Just as she reached the doorway, she paused and turned to look at me. I'll come back when you've calmed down. As night fell, Ethan came by to check on me. Earlier that afternoon, I had asked Emmy to bring me my laptop. Now I was struggling to manage work with just one hand when Ethan walked in and saw me. His tone was cold as he spoke. A multi-million-dollar project? Is it really worth you handling while injured? His words were sharp, but his actions carried a warmth that couldn't be ignored. Ethan sat down by my bedside, opened a medical kit, and carefully rolled up the leg of my pants to tend to my wound. He didn't say a word throughout the process, focusing intently as he applied the ointment. His touch was so gentle that I couldn't feel even a hint of pain. Once he finished with my leg, he swapped out the cotton swab for a fresh one, dipped it in more ointment, and leaned closer to me. The crisp, comforting scent of cedarwood and orange filled my senses, a welcome contrast to the harsh smell of antiseptic. That fragrance alone was enough to calm me. Our eyes met, and it felt as though 1,000 unspoken words hung between us. I couldn't hold back anymore and finally asked the question that had been haunting me since I saw Ethan again. Ethan, did you marry her? The room fell silent. Ethan didn't answer, continuing instead to carefully apply the ointment. But his silence chilled me to the core. Sometimes, the absence of a response is the clearest answer of all. I suddenly felt ridiculous. How could I have been so clueless to confess my feelings back then? And after all these years, I still didn't know when to stop asking questions that were none of my business. Maybe I should have realized long ago Ethan's care for me was nothing more than the affection of an older brother. Any deeper feelings were just figments of my imagination. When he finished treating my wounds, he sighed. Sophie, Forget it, I shouldn't have asked, I interrupted with a bitter smile, barely holding back the tears threatening to spill over. I have a video call to attend in a bit. If there's nothing else, could you please leave? The truth was, I was terrified. I didn't want to hear him say something like, yes, I married her, and we've been happy ever since college. Ethan hesitated for a moment but swallowed whatever he'd been about to say. He nodded knowingly, though his mood seemed just as heavy as mine. Try to rest as much as you can. Your current condition isn't suitable for long hours of work. With that, he turned and left the room. I watched his retreating figure, and tears blurred my vision. But just as Ethan reached the door, he stopped abruptly. He didn't turn around, but his voice was calm when he asked, "Sophie, were you truly happy in your marriage with him?" The moment those words left his lips, my tears fell uncontrollably, like a string of pearls breaking and scattering everywhere. I tried to hold back my tears and said as calmly as possible, "Whether happiness is achieved or not, the die is already cast." He didn't rush to respond. After a long pause, he finally muttered hoarsely, "But I want you to be happy." With those words, he left. It was only after the hospital room door closed that I dared to let my tears flow freely. I stayed in the hospital for a week after that. Most of the scrapes had scabbed over, and my hand was in a cast. Ethan visited my room whenever he had free time. Since that night, we had spoken less and less, but he still took care of me like an older brother, feeding me, chatting with me. However, I didn't want to immerse myself in this atmosphere. So, without telling him, I checked myself out of the hospital. With my hand inconveniently injured, I returned to my own apartment. As soon as I stepped into the elevator, I called my assistant. "Email me the development proposal for that plot of land on the west side of the city." Also, ding, the elevator doors opened, cutting off my sentence. I froze for a moment, catching sight of my assistant's gentle expression as she asked softly, "Anything else you need?" "Nothing, that's all for now. I'll talk to you later." I hung up and turned coldly to face Olivia, who was waiting at my apartment door. "Do you have so much free time that you've decided to become a stalker?" I asked bluntly. Olivia looked even more haggard than the last time I saw her, noticeably thinner. When she saw me return, a smile immediately appeared on her face. She held out a thermos container and said, trying to ingratiate herself, "Sophia, I made the soup myself. It's perfect for your fractured hand. But I've been waiting for you for hours, so it's a bit cold now. Let me in and I'll heat it up for you." I couldn't help but laugh at her obsequious expression. "No need for that. Olivia, instead of wasting your time here, why don't you figure out how to win back Emmy?" With that, I stepped around her, unlocked the door, and walked inside. To my surprise, Olivia shamelessly followed me in. She pouted pitifully and said in a small voice, "I'm not involved with her anymore. Ever since you and I divorced, I haven't seen her again. Sophia, I know you still care about me, which is why you're jealous. This means there's still a chance for us. You may be angry, but please don't push me away entirely." "Olivia, can you stop following me around like a rabid dog every single day?" I shouted, finally losing my patience at her disgusting behavior. "I never loved you, not even a shred of affection, not even a fleeting moment of attraction. I agreed to marry you because I was out of my mind and acting on impulse. You didn't love me either. We're divorced now. Can't we just move on?" "I love you," Olivia screamed with all her might, tears choking her voice as she murmured, "Sophia, I truly love you. Even if you never loved me, can you not be so cruel to me?" "You think I'm cruel?" I laughed bitterly, utterly exasperated. "How do you even manage to say something so absurd?" "Olivia, I turned a blind eye to your behavior during our 3 years of marriage for 2 reasons. 1, because I didn't love you, so I didn't care. And 2, because if you had been a decent person, you'd have had plenty of opportunities during those 3 years to express your feelings for me. But now that we're divorced, your words are laughably meaningless to me. I don't want to be tangled up in this with you anymore." Leave. The hope in Olivia's eyes slowly faded. After a long pause, she let out a low, eerie laugh that sent chills down my spine. The next moment, she grabbed a fruit knife from the table and pressed it against her own neck, as though she had made some sort of twisted decision. "Sophia, I know nothing I say now will matter to you. Since you hate me so much, then I might as well make you hate me even more. If you won't forgive me, even if I have to force you, I'll beg for another chance." As she spoke, Olivia pressed the knife deeper into her skin. Bright red blood began to pour out, dripping down her collar and soaking her clothes. I stared in horror, simultaneously relieved that we were divorced. A person capable of stabbing themselves could just as easily stab me someday. Taking a deep breath, I summoned every last ounce of patience to try reasoning with her. "Why do this to yourself? Maybe, if you think about it, you don't truly love me. You're just not accustomed to losing someone you were once close to. Olivia, let me go. Let yourself go too." Perhaps sensing my exhaustion, Olivia gave a bitter smile, tears streaming down her face as she asked me, Is there truly not even the slightest possibility? I shook my head firmly. She finally dropped the knife. Sophia, we were married for 3 years and I never even held you in my arms. Can you give me one chance to hold you now? Just as I was about to refuse, Ethan's voice rang out before I could speak. He had swapped out his white coat for a black trench coat and strode in with long, purposeful steps. No, you may not, he answered coldly on my behalf. Then he positioned himself by my side, his tone and gaze softening, though there remained traces of sorrow in his expression. Why did you leave without saying a word? And who are you? Olivia suddenly roared, her fists clenched so tightly that her knuckles cracked. Ethan raised his eyes to meet hers, his entire demeanor radiating an ominous aura. Without a shred of politeness, he retorted, "What does that have to do with you? I only know that you're such an extreme person. Honestly, I should call the police and have you arrested right now. Clearly, you've scared Sophie." Whether it was that sentence or simply hearing Sophie that provoked Olivia, she suddenly snapped like a madwoman and lunged forward. Before I could even react, she was already grappling with Ethan. Watching the two of them locked in a heated struggle, my heart sank, and I shouted, "Stop fighting," yet no one paid any attention to me. With an injured hand, I couldn't separate them even if I tried. Before long, Ethan gained the upper hand, pinning Olivia to the ground in a defeated state. Blood trickled intermittently from her neck, and her collar had been ripped open during the scuffle. Just as Ethan raised his fist to strike her again, he abruptly stopped, stood up, and said coldly, "You should go to the hospital and get that treated." Olivia struggled to her feet, ready to charge at him again, but this time I quickly stepped in front of Ethan, shielding him with my arms outstretched. The pain I anticipated never came. Olivia trembled all over, staring at me in disbelief before asking, aggrieved, "Are you really willing to get hurt just to protect him?" I didn't answer her question. Instead, I raised my gaze and said firmly, "Leave. I don't want to repeat myself." In the end, Olivia withdrew her fist, let out a bitter laugh, and left my house. I watched her figure disappear down the street, breathing a sigh of relief before turning to look at Ethan. Unexpectedly, he suddenly pushed me down onto the couch and, without any warning, pulled the fabric off my shoulder. "What are you doing?" I shrieked, scrambling to retreat. Ethan's eyes lingered on my bare shoulder for a moment before he sighed in relief. The next second, however, he grabbed my hand and started pulling me toward the door. "Ethan, what are you doing?" I exclaimed, completely bewildered as I struggled to free myself. This time, he finally regained his composure, looking at me with a mixture of urgency and hesitation. After several attempts to speak, he finally said, "Soph, you should divorce him." I was utterly stunned. Ethan took a deep breath and held my shoulders, his voice steady yet full of concern as he said, "What I'm about to tell you is important, but don't worry. Even if you've been infected, I will do everything I can to help you recover." While fighting with him just now, I noticed that the rash on his skin is highly likely to be caused by a venereal disease. And there's a chance you might have already been exposed. I need to take you to the hospital first, and then I'll come back to clean up the blood here. As he said this, he suddenly pulled me into his arms, burying his head in my shoulder. His voice carried a hint of sorrow as he murmured, "I'm sorry, Soph. I should have realized sooner. I know you're scared. If you feel like crying, don't hold back." This unexpected hug made it hard for me to refuse, but the thought of Ethan already being married made me bite my lip and push him away. When I did, a flicker of surprise crossed his face, but he quickly reached for my hand again. "Let's go to the hospital first." Before his hand could touch mine, I took a step back and shook my head. "There's no need." Taking a deep breath, I calmly told him, "I never had any relationship with Olivia. We've never even shared more than 2 meals together, so you don't have to worry." "What? What?" Ethan was visibly stunned by this revelation. I looked up at him with a bitter smile, though my heart felt painfully heavy. We had already divorced before we met again. He stared at me, his mouth opening and closing as if searching for the right words. But in the end, Ethan stepped forward and grabbed my hand again. "Soph, we can talk about all this later. I need to take you to the hospital first." "Ethan, I don't want this," I choked out, shouting with a shaky voice. When I looked at him again, tears were already streaming uncontrollably down my face. "You're married, I don't want to interfere in your life with her. No matter the relationship, I can't. I admit it after all these years, I still love you without any courage to stop." but I also know that love requires boundaries. Even if you've always treated me like a sister, she would certainly feel jealous if she found out. I'll go to the hospital myself. You should go back. With that, I turned and started heading toward my room, tears blurring my vision. Before I could take another step, I was swept into a warm embrace. Ethan held me tightly, as if letting go would mean losing me forever. Before I could say anything, his trembling voice reached my ears. "Who told you I was married?" I froze, unable to utter a single word. He continued, "Soph, I love you. I've only ever loved you. But clearly, there have been misunderstandings between us. Do you know how happy I was when you confessed your feelings to me all those years ago? I was thrilled, almost delirious with joy. But reason told me you were about to take your exams and you had more important things to focus on. And besides, confessing. That's something I should have done first, so I decided to wait. When we both got into the same college, I was ecstatic and wanted to find a chance to have a proper talk with you. But then, you suddenly started avoiding me and saying things to push me away. I couldn't understand why. Later, you started dating someone else, and it seemed like you never wanted to see me again." As he spoke, I could feel the warmth of tears soaking into my shoulder. I guessed Ethan was crying. I don't know what really happened. Watching you laugh and talk with him, I ran away. Those years, I missed you every single day. I wanted to reach out, but I had no right. Eventually, I mustered the courage to return to the country, only to hear the news of your wedding. I was a coward. From that day on, even though we lived in the same city, I could only watch you from afar, too scared to do anything else. I was afraid I wouldn't be able to stop myself from taking you away from him. I was terrified that I might ruin your happiness. I felt Ethan's trembling back and the warmth of his tears against me. Am I dreaming? I reached out to hold him, asking uncertainly. Ethan suddenly smiled. "You're not dreaming." At his words, I finally broke down and cried. "Then what's going on with her?" I saw her hugging you, hearing me cry louder. He panicked completely. He quickly let go of me, cupped my face in his hands, and coaxed me helplessly yet affectionately. "My little princess, I swear I'm innocent. She does like me, but I don't like her at all. The only person I've loved all these years is you. Just you. I don't even remember her hugging me, but I can tell you with absolute certainty I did not hug her back. If I'm lying, I'll let Lee MMPH. Before he could finish his drastic vow, I silenced him with a kiss. I stood on tiptoes, wrapping my arms around the back of Ethan's neck, pulling us closer and closer. After all these years of stubborn silence, we finally confessed our feelings for each other. I thought to myself, this must be the happiest thing to know we didn't miss out on each other after all, and that we still loved each other deeply after so many years. Ethan froze for a moment before taking the lead, pulling me into his arms. But like me, he was clumsy and hesitant. It wasn't until a month later that my hand had fully healed and Ethan personally removed my cast. Looking at my once broken hand, I joked with a tinge of sentiment. Fate is such a funny thing. If I hadn't had that accident that night, maybe we really wouldn't have seen each other for the rest of our lives. Hearing this, Ethan leaned over to kiss me, then said seriously, "I'd rather have met you later than let you suffer like that." Anyway, I'd already resigned myself to staying single forever or waiting for the chance to marry you if you ever. Remarried. I'd wait as long as it took. Looking at his silly expression, I couldn't help but cup his face. Well, here I am. Divorced and everything, and here you are, still waiting. He raised an eyebrow with a cheeky grin. "So, what's next?" I wanted to ask. "Does it bother you that I've been married before?" But Ethan seemed to read my mind. He looked at me with a gaze so steadfast and sincere, it melted every doubt I had. "Sophie, I don't care. I love you. No matter who you are, no matter what you've been through, I will always love you." His eyes told no lies, and I chose to believe him. Having waited so long for this reunion, I didn't want to risk losing him again. On the way home, he mentioned he had some business to handle and asked me to wait in the car. As soon as I sat down in the passenger seat, my phone buzzed with a notification. It was an unfamiliar number, but the message was signed by Olivia. "Sophia, it's Olivia. It's been a long time. I don't know how you're doing, but I trust that life is better without me in it. I'm sure Ethan has already told you about my illness. I'm not afraid of dying. When the doctor told me, all I felt was relief that I'd never crossed a line with you. They say I might have just months or maybe a few years left. I thought about clinging onto you, hoping you'd pity me enough to give me a second chance. But then I realized I couldn't be that selfish anymore. Sophia, I'm going into exile. Wherever I die, that will be my home. But if I could choose, I'd want to die in your arms. Anyway, I'll stop with the dark thoughts before I scare you off. I've hurt you so many times before. I just hope in another life I'll have a chance to make it up to you. Sophia, my love, may you always be happy. Reading her long message, I couldn't help feeling a heavy sorrow. Olivia had such a promising life ahead of her, yet her repeated mistakes had cost her the person she loved most. If she had been more resolute back then, perhaps she and Emma could have had a beautiful story of their own. Just then, the driver's side door opened. Ethan climbed into the car, beaming with a smile. Before I could say anything, he pulled out an exquisite diamond ring. I almost couldn't wait to do this earlier, but proposing at the hospital felt weird. Sophie, I don't want to wait any longer. I'm asking you to be my wife. I was stunned. This day had come so fast. But then again, after all these years apart, perhaps it couldn't come fast enough. Tears welled up in my eyes as I smiled and nodded. I will. Some people in life are like gifts, wrapped away for years. Even after being absent for so long, when you finally open them, they're still as precious as ever. To me, Ethan is exactly that kind of existence.